The meeting is yours and it's being recorded.
Thank you. This meeting of the Coventry Town Council will now come to order at 6:02. Madam Clerk, please conduct a roll call.
Ian Dixon,
Here,
Jennifer Ludwig,
Here.
Jamie LeBlanc,
Here.
Kimberly Shockley,
Here.
thank
Ed
you.
Lisa Mills.
Here.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. LeBlanc, please lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. We extend a warm welcome to members of the public. Mr. Wazika, do we have any members of the public with us this evening?
Currently, we have 13.
13, excellent. Well, welcome, Mr. Wazika. We're looking forward to the presentation. Ms. Mills, welcome. We're very happy to see you here this evening and want to extend a thanks to you. You've only been with us for 6 weeks and you've produced this massive 3-ring binder, which has data, considering that you started from ground zero when you arrived at our doorstep in Coventry. We greatly appreciate all the work that you've put in. I know you've had to put in many hours, including very long nights. We all hope that your days will become a little bit more manageable, but we appreciate the effort. We do have an important decision to make down the line for the budget. So thank you for all your work. This is a work session on the Town of Coventry Municipal budget, both operating and capital budgets. The council may ask questions as the presentation is being made. Public comment will be allowed at the end of the meeting. And this is one of several public sessions on the budget. I just want to mention to people that tomorrow evening, Thursday, April 1st, we will be having a joint meeting with the Coventry Public Schools when they present their budget. We also have a session planned May 3rd. It will be a town council work session on the budget. And we may also try to have an additional session sometime in April, and we will announce it. After the May 3rd session, we are scheduled for a public hearing on the budget on May 5th. We've also added one on a Saturday, May 8th. And May 17th, the town council will meet to amend and adopt a budget. June 8th, there will be a town financial meeting, and June 10th will be a Thursday referendum. As a note to the public, you may not have a copy of the binder as we have it, but we do have a 3-ring binder, which was received last evening. So we all have not had a thorough opportunity to go through every single page of this binder, but we've all made a valiant effort to do as much as we could between last night and this evening. The budget data that we have, just to let the public know, it has 9 columns. What we're looking at is FY19, the approved budget and the actuals that were spent. FY20, the approved and the actuals. FY21, the budget and the actuals from July 1st, 2020 through December 31st, 2020. We also have the FY22 proposed budget. We also have a column that shows the changes in dollars between the FY21 and FY22 budget. And we have a column that shows the percentage change between the FY21 and 22 budget. And this, every single page has all of these columns, lots of data for us. And just as a reminder to you, because of 3 referendum for this particular budget year were not passed, we are operating on last year's budget. Mr. Wazika, we're ready for your presentation, so thank you.
All right, first, let me begin by saying that tomorrow that this budget will be posted online. Everything that's in your binder will be, pretty much everything that's in your binder will be put out as a PDF on our website tomorrow. So that will be out there for the public as of tomorrow to do it. Because we haven't presented this yet, it's still a work product. That's why we haven't put it out on the website until after we have this meeting. And just as a little background note, if you can see this binder on my desk, this is all the background information that's going into this budget. This budget is a completely brand new budget from the ground up. We entirely scrapped the way we'd been doing it. Lisa came in, she says, I got a better way of doing it. Would you like us to do it? All right, we got about 8 weeks to do it. Can we get it done? Lisa, being Lisa, I'll give you an example. This past weekend, she spent over 20 hours in town hall alone working on this thing. She's here every night till who knows when, 7, 8 o'clock. She's been working on this beyond belief over the last 8 weeks. So this is entirely new from the ground, like even as far as things like the FY19s and FY20s. That data had to all be gathered and added in, and all of this was entered into these spreadsheets to get this to this point. It's a massive undertaking on what's in here. There are some adjustments that we're going to be making on this over the next week or so. We've found a few things that we need to adjust a bit, but I'm going to work based on what we have here, because what you've got, what we've got here, we'll make those adjustments and send out new pages to the council, as well as posting it online on those changes that we do make over the next week or so on this. I'd also like to explain the CIP budget is a 5-year proposal that is being compiled and completed now. It then has to go in front of the Planning Commission for their approval and compliance with the comp plan. We will have that for you in another week or two. Once that's going through, it may even be a little bit longer. It's got to go through, like I said, planning. Once it's going, it's basically the same one that we presented last year with the updated new for the first year. So that you'll have in the next week or two on that. I apologize, but time has been short with everything that we've been doing, and we haven't been able to complete that at this point. And again, the emphasis is on operating. That's where the keys are. I've got a presentation I'm going to start with. Let me share my screen. Okay. Can everybody see this?
Yes.
Okay. So start with the basics. Budget summary. What is the budget? The budget's it's got the general government section, has a police public safety section, public works, roads and building maintenance, public works, building official and engineering, separate divisions, planning and development, service function departments, the debt service, capital outlay, and education. So that's how it's broken down. The budget's got three drivers: the revenues, the expenditures, and the capital improvement program. The revenue is generated through property taxes, real property, property taxes, tangible, motor vehicle taxes, fees and charges, licenses and permits, state aid, and investment income. This year, the car tax reduction, there's been a decrease in the number of taxable value, net assessed value, approximately of 11% in it. The current tax state legislation provides for reimbursement, and that's in the state aid section of it. We've had an investment income increase, and recording and land trust fees increases going up because of the development that's going on in town. That's based off the tax stamps. Okay, the expenditures. Expenditures are broken down into operations, personnel, financing, schools, assets and infrastructure, and then the reserves, such as capital reserve, contingencies, and all of those. Salaries. Salary increases in what you see in this proposed budget. Council 94's union contract was approved in March 21. There's salary increases of 2% a year for FY20, 21, and 22. So you have a cumulative 6% increase in the FY22 budget on those salaries. The management salaries, we've put that in. There's been 3 years of no raises. It's actually closer to 4 that we've had no raises, and we've put in for a 5% raise for those management positions. Police contract has a salary increase of 2% a year in their contract. Health, we're projecting a 4% increase in premiums. Dental, we're projecting a solid, consistent 0 increase in those premiums. Retirement, the police pension, we're looking at and calculating at this point a 2% increase. So that may change dramatically if, based on some of the things we're working on. The police OPED, it's about a 4% increase. Municipal defined benefits, that's about a 2.8% increase. Schools non-teacher, that SRP pension, that's projected at about a 4% increase. And the 414H plan, we're projecting about a 73% increase in that as more people have come onto it and come into it, and some are actually starting to increase their contributions into it.
Mr. Wazika, could you go back one slide?
Yes, ma'am.
Under retirements, under the SRP, we project this as 0.4% increase. Is it 4% or 0.4?
No, it should have been a 4.
Okay, so that can be corrected. Thank you.
Bond debt service, the town debt service has actually had an increase of about 1.7% increase. The school bond debt service has a decrease of about 3.7%. Capital lease service is increasing by 130,000 based on the leases that for DPW and Parks and Recreation that were approved at a prior town council meeting. Capital expenditure, we're proposing a $300,000 increase in that line item, bringing it to 500,000. But I'm going to tell you right now, that number is going to have to decrease a bit. How much, we're still looking at that with some of the other adjustments we're making. There's almost $100,000 of increase for asphalt for roads and bridges. We're getting a lot of complaints about the condition of the roads. The only way we get those things fixed is to increase that budget. Labor contracts, the police contract will expire on June 30th, 2021, and negotiations will be beginning on that shortly. And the Council 94 contract, even though that was just recently settled, because it took so long, that's actually got a December 31st, 2022 expiration date that one's done. Okay, increase in expenditures. We are proposing for the school the $1.883 million that they are requesting. We have put that into this budget. On the municipal side, you're going to note that there's a $2.3 million increase. A good percentage of that, though, is coming from increases in other revenue. About $1 million of that is from the increase in the tax rate. The other amount is coming from increases in revenue, such as the reimbursement for the vehicle tax that is having a substantial uptick in it this year. So a total increase, we're looking at 4.162 million. And the revenues, as I said, we're looking at a general property tax. We're proposing a 3.95% increase, and that's going to generate about $2.8 million. Municipal non-tax revenue, we're looking at about $1.8 million from that coming up in that. And like I said, that's those other revenue increases that are all listed in this budget. Just some budget basics. Local governments are required to adopt a balanced budget by allocating resources in conformity with both policies and fiscal targets. Budgets ensure spending follows a plan and supports government objectives. Meeting the objectives requires a budget preparation based on several concepts recognizing accountability. The town uses current and prior year financials and budgets, state aid information, service contracts, information on government revenues and expenditures, debt service commitments, collective bargaining agreements, and multi-year capital budget plans in developing an operating budget that is responsible. The finance department compiles each department's budget by talking to the department heads and determine their future needs. All right, so that's the basic presentation on the can pot.
Can I ask a question,
Go
President
ahead,
Dixon?
sir.
Yes, Mr. LeBlanc.
Can you share your screen again and go back to slide, I think it was 11?
Yes, sir.
The third column, it says increase, decrease, dollar change, FY21, FY22. When we say FY21, what is that referring to?
That is referring to the amount that we expended last year. I know it was a non-approved budget, but it was still a budget based on state law. and town charter. It
What
was
was,
a
what's the-
non-citizen approved budget.
okay, but it ultimately wasn't approved by the voters. So my question is, what is the increase from the FY20 level funded budget to the FY22 budget that you are presenting tonight?
Those numbers should be identical.
It is identical. If you look on the expenditure summary, on the very, I think it's the second or third line down after education, you can see it was 47,078,000 for 21, and it's the same as it was for 20. So the increase for this year of to 48,961 is a net increase of 1,883,144. So it is when we're doing the comparison from FY21 to 22, it is the same.
Well, it's not the same though, because I mean, I'm coming up with different, when I do by department, by account, there's a lot different changes than what you had included in this binder when we do
Well-
FY21 to 22, that's all.
And there
What
are,
was-
Jamie, there are
what was-
line item changes do occur. It's the total budgeted amount that is identical to the previous year. We're obligated to run that same total, but we're allowed to make some shifts as needed to keep
Right.
funding those departments that needed to be. So yes, you will see variances in department to department, but overall, the total amount is the same from FY20 to FY21.
And for example, like with the bonds for the school department for 20 to 21, there was definitely a change, but that is what it is. We have to pay it. So like Ed stated, we had to shift, or well, they shifted. So I picked up this 21 budget that was already in our Keystone system, and they had shifted it to the lines because obviously we have to pay bonds and we have to pay certain things. So allocations change.
Understood. I just, the comparison between the approved 2020 and the FY22, I think is a more appropriate way of looking at the budget, that's all.
Yeah, but we have to compare it to the current fiscal year when we're moving forward into the new budget. That's why we have to list it as the actual that was in there.
Okay.
Any other questions on any of the slides?
That's it for me, but thank you.
You're welcome.
Members of the council, questions for Mr. Wazika or Ms. Mills? Mrs. Shockley.
Yeah, thank you. So can I just make sure I understand that even though the state is decreasing the car tax, it's not a loss of revenue to the town because the state is reimbursing?
Correct.
Okay, so I just wanted to make sure I understood that correctly.
Yep.
So,
What we charge our citizens is going down, but the total amount coming in is actually going up because of that reimbursement from the state.
And it's
Perfect.
coming in as state aid. So you would see that in the revenue section of state aid.
okay. Perfect, that makes sense. Can you just give a better explanation for the people on the phone of what the 414H is? I mean, we're showing it's going up 73%. And maybe just give a better explanation of the whys.
Well, that's, you want me to do that or would you like?
No, I mean, I can give a real simple one. The 414H is the defined contribution pension plan that we shifted all of our municipal employees over to, I want to say 7 or 8 years ago. We do it up to 10% match for whatever an employee contributes in. Considering the number of employees that we've got, the amount so far has been on the lower side. We have several that are down in a 1% and 2% match. We are starting to get some of our newer employees that are coming on, that they are joining in, and our numbers are starting to increase a bit. But even the projected number this year is still, I mean, as the defined benefit pension starts to phase out because of people's demise and being removed from the system, those numbers will drop less and less on the arc on those. The 414H will never hit the amount of money that we were putting into on the arc, because again, this is simply a match contribution. We're not doing a defined payment pension.
Right, so we won't have to pay up to 10% for their lifetime. While they're working, any percentage they put in up to 10%, we match.
We match.
Once they stop working, we don't pay anything
We
into
don't know a
this.
match. We
So
don't
they
know.
could live for 60 years or 100 years. We put in while they were employed.
Yep.
And a 10% match is,
Yep.
you know,
A defined contribution versus, as you're well aware, the defined benefit, which we pay until all of those people have a, go on, move on.
Yeah.
To the,
no, I just know without an understanding of that, my jaw might have dropped at the increase in this, not understanding that it's replacing the pension that we had
Yep.
for employees that would have been for their lifetime.
like I said, every new employee goes into that, every new municipal and non-municipal employee. The police have their own pension. They go into the police pension. Every other town employee, no matter department head to DPW employee, everybody's into this new system. So even Mr. Marchant will be into there, and his expected contribution is built into this budget as well. What we assume he will do, and we
Assume the high.
yeah, we did, and that's the thing, and that's why it may not be the number that we've got projected in there. It may be lower, but we're assuming the worst, making sure that we're covered, and we've got the funds in there.
Okay.
Did I cover that? Thank you.
Okay, can I just ask, why is the town's bond debt increased by 1.7% and the schools has gone down by 3.7? Is there something we've done to refinance?
No, it didn't. But some of these, some of the interest rates may have adjusted. Lisa, we get the bill in based on our plans, and you can look at the debt service book. It's been posted, and it just works from there.
Yeah, I did a whole allocation schedule on that, and all I did is took it off the debt book, and last year's number was spot on as of this year's number. Why it increased 45,000. You know, it's probably like Ed was saying, an increased payment. I mean, sometimes they may have a principal payment of 101 this year or prior year, and this year it might be 150. So we did.
Okay, so it's not like my fixed mortgage where
No,
every year
no,
I'm
none of
paying
these
the
are.
same amount, even if my principal and interest
Yeah,
are going
no.
in different directions.
Yeah,
Okay.
they're all variable.
Okay.
Yep.
It's all variable debt. Okay. And I had one other question. Can you just go back to slide 11 again? I didn't 100% understand. I think you gave a town number that just didn't make sense to me based on the numbers that were on the slide. So I think you were discussing something and I didn't listen fast enough.
Okay, so which one didn't you get, Kim?
I don't know. I thought you at the end had said,
Well, this is the expenditure. So this is the 1.88 is what we're projecting for the school and recommending to give them over last year. We're looking at a $2.2 million total increase in expenditures, but only 900 and change of that is from taxes. The other is for increased revenues from other areas.
okay,
That's what this is. So the total increase in expenditure is 4.162 million.
but
188.
38% of that is from revenue outside of taxes.
Yes. Yep.
Okay, so what is that? Like licenses, fees?
Part of it is a good chunk of that is coming from the motor vehicle reimbursement on those numbers. And the numbers that we used last year may have been a little bit lower than what was actually received. And it wasn't updated when the new numbers came in. And that's why you're going to see when the audit comes out, the amount of the increase in our
Well, we got increase in state aid, like you had mentioned, of about $1 million. And that, like Ed has mentioned, it might. So when we show the change of that 1.9 million, it's based on what was budgeted in 21 and what we're proposing now. So if last year's 21 budget proposal for state aid was maybe a little too conservative and not spot on, and we received more, it's going to look like the delta is going to look a little bit larger than it really should have been, right? Because they underestimated the revenue last year, maybe. So that's about $1.5 million in from general government, and that's made up of those investment income of almost 250,000 from finance department here, and another 200,000 from town clerk of reporting fees. And so that makes up a bulk of it. And then the police station has another increase of 100,000 in the use of the car on details. So
All right, I have a bunch of questions on the binder, but I'll let my fellow council members ask some questions based on the presentation.
Any more on this, or can I kill the feed on this one?
I'm going to ask Ms. Ludwig, do you have any questions on the slide presentation before he removes it?
Yes.
Okay, Ms. Ludwig.
Thank you, President Dixon. I'm trying to figure out what slide number it was.
What did it say on it, ma'am?
If it, asphalt, 100,000, 95K for the asphalt, expenditures capital.
Yeah.
Maybe more of a comment. So this, I don't know why, but this number strikes me a little low based off of just driving around town and seeing what it seems like we need to get in. So I'll definitely be interested in speaking with Director McGee and understanding kind of where we see this going. So it sounds like we're going to have some sort of review with the directors in late April. So I'll definitely welcome that. I think it'd be helpful to understand, do they have some sort of plan or target on, hey, these are the following 10 streets we could do if we increase the asphalt budget by, the 100,000. Just some sort of general awareness, that would be fantastic. I think that'll help people understand where the money's going.
We could increase that asphalt line item by 3 million, and it wouldn't be enough to do all of the roads.
Okay. That's fine, but
Yeah.
I guess how are we choosing?
Yes, exactly. So I think it would be helpful for people to understand, 100,000 would get us approximately, I don't know.
What's 100,000?
Sorry?
That's $100,000 increase in what was already in his budget.
Yes, so that would be helpful to say we could do this many more repairs. If there's 1 million potholes in Coventry, we could get to 75% or what, just something so people could understand, like, what can we do with that money? That would be great.
Yep.
And then give me 1 second. Let me just look at the other slide here. So in the so if we look at, I guess this is 11 or 12 summary of
Revenue is 12, expenditures is 11.
Can we go to expenditures, please? Slide 11. So on the expenditure side, for anywhere that is looking for the increase, it seems like it was somewhere summarized in this report. So is that like the 95K for asphalt or the 130K for?
Right, all of those increases are covered under this with these.
Okay, so for example, one of the things we talked about in prior years was economic development person, salary for that. So that is not included in here. Is that right?
Lisa, did you add that position back in? You're on mute.
yes, no, I didn't get a request to do that. That would have came from, I believe, Mr. McGee, correct?
No,
And-
Mr. Crossman, would it come
Oh,
from
Mr.
Mr. Crossman?
Okay, so I didn't get a request for that, but let me look on the sheet to see if he's in there on that. Hold on. Give me a second. I'm gonna pull up the payroll sheet for him. All right. So I have Director Russell, and then I have an assistant planner and a planning clerk and a zoning clerk.
Yeah.
So I do not have an engine.
Economic development.
No, ma'am, I don't.
We have a
Okay.
couple of other new positions that are in there. That one we didn't add back in at this point. Again, that's something that the council wants to change in. We will be able to do that once you review, if you'd like to make that move.
Ludwig,
When
do
I-
you have other questions?
No, that's it for right now.
Okay.
Thanks.
Mrs. Shockley, do we want to go back to you now? Other questions?
I mean, I have questions as you go through the binder.
Okay,
So I don't know exactly how we planned on laying out tonight's meeting. But these are big numbers and I just want to make sure I have a full recollection. But I'll defer to Mr. LeBlanc right now because
okay, Mr. LeBlanc.
Just a question, with the $1.9 trillion legislation passing, I'm assuming that none of those funds are included in this budget tonight, because I think it would be a lot larger. Are we going to have a special meeting related to those funds in the budget associated with how we're going to expense those funds?
Yes, we will. As soon as we know exactly the amount as well as exactly what we can use it on. If it comes in time, we could make an adjustment on this budget before it's presented to the voters, if you wanted to even. And make those expenditures and revenue part of this. Am I correct on that, Lisa?
Yes, and I do believe I looked at Craig's Levis presentation for the school budget, and he mentioned the $4.5 to $5 million revenue for the federal act. He just mentioned it. He didn't mention where he's going to spend it on or anything. So I know he has it in his presentation, because I believe I might be wrong here, but I'm pretty sure it was supposed to be designated to schools. I thought, right, Ed? Or
Yeah, that 5 mil, that approximate 5 mil is for school. There's
Yeah,
additional for the town, but that 5 mil is earmarked for them.
right. So he's probably going to expand on that and how he's going to incorporate that in his budget. So it's not in our budget over here.
When it comes
And
to
my concern, Ed, is just, I don't think it's just the town council say on how those funds get spent. I think part of it is legislation, but the other part, I think the residents actually have say as well. I think, but that's why I'm asking the question. That's all.
I think it's a great question, because we have all that revenue, and I'm sure the citizens are going to want some reduction of something, because we're getting a large sum from the federal government. So I suspect they're going to want some reduction in our overall budget here, but I totally agree with you on that.
again,
I appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
But
Again-
but if we don't hear how much we're getting, when we're getting, and how it can be used, or we have to make a decision by the town council in just a couple of months, it's going to be very difficult for this budget to be adjusted. Is that correct, Ms. Mills?
I believe you're right, but I read some articles about the act, and it said it was going to be totally distributed in 60 days. We'll see if that happens.
The problem with this, though, is these are one-time funds. We do not use these one-time funds to adjust our budget. If we do that, we are creating a structural deficit. As Mr. LeBlanc is well aware, these funds would be for, if we can use them for something, any type of building repairs, road repairs, whatever we could use these funds for, we'll look at, but again, one-time expenditure, not an ongoing operational cost. To replace part of our budget with these, next year, we just need to we got to come up and figure out how we're going to get it back into the budget. So that's why we would never use any of this for operational numbers. It has to be simply one-time usage.
And
I would agree.
yeah, and I agree with that. I understand that. But we still need to know what's coming, when it's coming, and what are the parameters around which it may be used.
Yep.
Are there any other questions for the council? I do have one question, but I want to wait for the members of the council. Okay, I have a question. Maybe it's just a concern. It's under assessed values. It's a chapter called assessed values. And what I was looking at, which really surprised me, is the amount of net asset. I have to use my flashlight because it's so dark in this room. Under the commercial net real estate, real property taxes, net assessed value for commercial, it's like 480 million. And then I noticed how much it is for net assessed value for residential. It's over 2 billion. Yeah, thank you so much. And I was really surprised at what I considered to be a low number for the commercial net assessed value. And it led me to ask these questions. Do we need to consider increasing the tax rate on commercial property? And/or is this a reason for us to add more commercial property? And/or does Coventry, and this is what comes to the values and culture of the citizens here, or does Coventry want to maintain itself as a bedroom community? And then the taxes really rely on the residents. And this is not a question we can answer tonight, but it seems like this indicates to me that we're more of a bedroom community, and the residents it will be necessary for them to pay the taxes. Otherwise, we're going to have to do something to increase this net assessed value for the commercial property. Mr. Wazika, any comments on that?
Yes, we currently use a ratio of 1.2 to 1. So 1.2%, 1.2 times the value for commercial versus residential. State law allows us to bring that up to 1.5 to 1. That is something the council at some point in a change of ordinance could decide to do if we want to go that route. This 1.2 ratio has been used for, as far as I know, as long as I've been in town, for 38 years. But it's something we can look at. I know one of my tasks as operations officer is to look at and revamp that whole property tax code involving frozen and all of the rest of it, and reevaluate all of it and make a proposal to the town, to the council on changing in there. And that's something we will be looking at that point on if we make adjustments on there. Again, the higher we bring that ratio up for the commercial, the more we could be pushing commercial out. I would do an analysis to see what other communities are using surrounding us, and then come up with what's fair and equitable if a change is needed on that. So that's something we would look at during that analysis of the whole taxing structure.
I bring it up only as a point of interest because as I was going through the binder last evening, I noted this. I really had never noticed this before. And is it correct to say, maybe I'm not sure if that's the right word, but does it look like we're more of a bedroom community than anything else?
We are. There's no getting around that. I mean, a vast amount of our property is residential property. I mean, we don't have a lot of industrial. We've got a few. We've got some commercial, not a lot. I mean, we are. Center of New England was supposed to be that big commercial development, and I would suspect a lot of that value is coming from out of there. But it never turned into what it was supposed to be that they envisioned 15, 20 years ago. But yeah, we are a bedroom community. There's no getting around it.
So based on the questions I asked and the comments you made relating to a need to do some analysis, would this analysis actually take more time than we would have between now and the referendum? Is this something that would maybe have an impact on us next year?
There's no way that gets done between now and 3 months from now. That's impossible. You wouldn't want to rush this. This is something that's too critical. It's going to take time, and you could enact it for the following fiscal year on any of these changes. Same thing with the freeze, any kind of adjustments that you give on other areas. So all of that needs to be looked at and put in front of the council. And I think council members should be part of that analysis team that goes through all of this. So
Correct. Well,
yeah, that's not going to be happening between now and this budget being voted on.
right. And the last question I have actually has to do with, and I know we're not really able to go into every department as we don't have the appropriate people here, but I was looking at building inspection. I was looking at permit fees. Again, this looks like an area that perhaps we need another review. The page numbers are not numbered. I don't know if there's going to be another rendition of this book. We might want to add page numbers.
Yeah, yes, ma'am. I was gonna do that with the index, but we didn't have,
Oh, that's okay.
And what number code is it? What 3-digit code?
Said, building inspection department number, I have to use my.
820.
Eight-
Ed, click on that tab, 820.
Yeah, 820. I mean, I don't know how these fees or permit fees correspond or relate to what is done in other communities. But I just point out that it doesn't seem, considering the amount of development that we've had approved this current year, that the amount of money we're bringing in for building fees, plumbing and heating permits, et cetera, electrical permits and other revenue, it seems low. But I would need to have some analysis done to see how our charges for permits correspond to other communities like have similar size as we do.
The numbers we've used in there are conservative. If you look at the actual for 21, we're already at the 6-month mark. We're at 134,000 in permit fees for the basic building permits. These fees that we have now are based on the state numbers. We have adjusted all of them. I believe it was last year when we implemented our new e-building permit system. These values were all put to the state level, so all of them are at that. But again, you're right. I mean, we've got 185 in there. If you look at, we did half a year, we've done 134. So we've got. Again, can we tweak that revenue up a little bit? We might be able to, we might not be. I think where we are right now is a reasonable amount. And if we do generate a little bit more than that, it's not going to be a ton, but it's in the ballpark for what we're looking at. Lisa, go ahead. You've got something?
Yes, I just wanted to state that I did send these all have been reviewed by the department head. It is a very conservative number. But to answer your question, Madam President, the most recent place that I worked at as a finance director, these revenue numbers are extremely small. I was actually surprised considering all the development here. Portsmouth is half the size of Coventry population-wise, and you seem to have a lot more development, yet Portsmouth is around, anywhere from 200 to 334,000 a year. So I think it might be of interest to look at how we're charging for these permits, because I thought they're extremely low. That's how.
Thank you for your comment. I know a little bit here and a little bit there adds up. And I don't want to push development out of the community. I don't want to push commercial businesses out of the community. But I think that we need to look and do an analysis of how we compare to other communities of like size and to determine what would be a reasonable amount of money. As I said before, a little bit here and a little bit there does add up, and it does help the taxpayers, especially if we're going to remain a bedroom community. Now, without an economic development specialist or a coordinator, whatever that title would be, it's not in the budget. So we're not really having a concerted effort to go after more commercial business. So right now, we have to do with what we have. And so we do need to look at these ordinances and look at what we can do to improve the revenue line. Thank you.
President Dixon,
Yeah.
I have combed through my binder and I do not have section 820. So,
I do, but it's not that.
okay. So I know this is a lot of paperwork. So,
It is under, excuse
when
me,
you get,
it's in the section called revenue. And it's toward, I would say, 2/3 of the way through the revenue section. I can't tell
I
you.
have 820 under Public Works in
That's
yellow.
Public Works.
So can I just briefly explain how that was put together? The tabs for the separate departments only show the expenditures, and the revenue is in, all of the revenue is in that revenue tab, even the detail for each department, because there's not a lot of departments that have revenue. I thought it'd be better to have it all sourced in one area. So if you look on that revenue tab, it should have all the detail behind it for each department.
I like the way you've organized it because it puts like things together and it gives us a complete picture without flipping through lots of tabs. So I like the presentation. So thank you, Ms. Mills.
Thank you.
Other questions from members of the council?
President Dixon, maybe
Ludwig.
maybe not a question, just a comment. So I definitely need a little bit more time to look at this. So I think someone mentioned, I'm sorry, I don't know if it was you, President Dixon, or someone mentioned that we did receive this last night. And I know that this is probably a lot of work to put together. So thank you very much. I just need a little bit more time to look through this, to be honest. So I'm going to reserve the right to ask questions in our next session as well.
Ms. Ludwig, I'll be honest, we didn't envision that we would be getting a lot of questions on this tonight. We knew because
Okay.
of when you received it. I've planned on throwing a special meeting. Well, I'll get Mr. Marchand to do a special meeting on this in the next week or two, where you've had time to review it all. So we'll have had time to make some of the adjustments we need to. And then we know you'll be able to ask the questions then. You'll have had a chance to fully analyze all of this. So
Okay, thank you.
Right, you're welcome.
I'm looking at our schedule. We have a regular meeting on April 12th and we have one, I think it's the 28th. Probably between the next regular meeting and the second meeting in April would be a good time to have department heads in so that we could begin a discussion, because leaving this for May 3rd for a town council work session on the budget, we've got a lot to discuss here. I raised a couple of issues and I know these are not issues that can be solved immediately, but we certainly want to put them on a to-do list. So there'll be many things on our to-do list, but many things that we're going to have to make decisions on before we make the final vote. I see Mrs. Shockley has her hand up.
Yes, thank you, President Dixon. Can I just ask, in this budget that you're showing us, is this the asks from the different town departments, or is this with things already being cut, or, with you, Ed, and you, Lisa, looking at it and saying, this is what we can do as opposed to this is what you want?
There are some cuts, but it is primarily because of the fact that we were looking at a zero increase this current year. We had a minor increase the year before. Our departments are, especially the Parks and Rec, the Parks and Rec as well as DPW, these departments are in need of funds. We're looking at trying to make Parks and Rec more self-sustaining. That's going to take time. Parks and DPW, especially because of the road conditions and all of the things there, money's been cut from those road repairs. We are looking at trying to bring those budgets back in line. And DPW lost $800,000 last year out of their budget. We cut that. So we're trying to still keep within the 4% and give them the ability to try to bring back some of the stuff that they truly need. Thankfully, we're just getting through on salt and sand on the snow removal budget. If we had another storm, we would have gone into the red on that. So there's a lot of numbers here that needed to be adjusted. So yeah, we've done both, but a lot of this is we've allowed them to come in. Everybody has been very conservative on what they're looking for. Nobody has gone overboard. They haven't gone crazy. Are there some things in there we could cut? Reluctantly, yes. I'm hoping that we could keep where we are. If you'd like on that economic development person, I'll be honest, I forgot to mention it to Lisa to put it back in there on that when the others have been added back in. We will try and make that adjustment and get that before we give you the next pages on that, because that is something I feel we need.
Yeah, and would you mind pulling out, it looks like there are a few new employees as I looked through this. Just what those
We'll break the cost down
employees are.
for you. Yep.
Yeah.
We'll do that.
Okay,
As again, these budgets are a very fluid document, and they always have been. And this back and forth and the changes and the up adjustments and everything we do will go on probably right up until the day you're ready to actually put it forward to the residents. This happens every year, and that's all part of the process to get that budget where we think we need it to be. So there'll be a lot of changes in this. We've still got line items on expenditures that we haven't got final numbers on. We don't have numbers on medical. We don't have final numbers on insurance. So there are a lot of other areas that we're still waiting on this. One of the big problems, even the state revenue, state numbers. We've got preliminaries on what we're expecting, but it's not a guarantee until they finalize their budget on what we're actually going to receive. And again, in the 11th hour, that could adversely affect where we go on some of those if we get cut on any of that. So again, fluid, it will be changing pretty much on a weekly, bi-weekly basis until we finalize this.
can I just ask, I don't see Parks and Rec on your revenue summary at all. Am I missing it? Like
Ms.
glossing over?
No, I actually brought that up to the director, and apparently in the prior years, they moved the revenue to other funds, special revenue funds, which I think it's, you know, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because I don't agree with putting that in special revenue fund. It should be in with the town general fund. And it, you know, that therefore the not only just the appearance, but you know, matching the revenue with the expenses should be in the same funds, and they're not. And, you know, I did have her send me those revenues so we could, if you so care to move those, because technically I'm not sure why that decision was made, but a special revenue fund shouldn't be just made because they want to put it over there. There's supposed to be legal reasons why you have it there, and they're only supposed to be used for certain circumstances. And that's usually why it's grants and other types of funds, but not to break out Parks and Rec. So I'm not sure when that happened, but that's a super, I'm glad you brought it up, because I was going to bring it up, but I didn't know who made that decision, and if we could bring it back into the general fund, because that would be a lot more revenue. And it should be in the general fund, quite frankly.
Well, it's asking for a certain amount of money, and if it's bringing in revenue as well, that helps offset.
Exactly. And that's the perception too. When the taxpayers see that budget and they're seeing you spending X amount on Parks and Recs, and they're like, whoa, what are they doing with, they don't see the revenue. And it's not, I mean, I don't believe in the past, the detail of the revenue has been to this extent in the general fund budget per se. But now that all these detailed departments are coming in and you're seeing what they're sharing into the revenue, I think it's a time to put that recreation back in to the general fund. But that's I think would be the town councils.
No, we could do
We could do it.
We could do that. We will do that. Again, Lisa, put it down on our list. One of the adjustments we will make and pull that out into a separate, into the general. So we list it out so you can see where it is.
That's great, because I do already have the information, so it would be easily added.
Okay, Mr. LeBlanc has a question.
Thank you, President Dixon. On the capital improvement, the 500,000, Ed, I know that you said it's probably going to come down a little bit. Would it be possible to break out that 500 or 400, whatever it is, by project so that the taxpayers know what they're voting on? For example, maybe we can say that bridge that everybody's been kind of talking about. We can say, listen, you approve this budget, that's going to get fixed, rather than just say 500 or 400,000 to capital improvement and then not know really what it's going to go to.
What happened on the capital improvement 2 years ago, 3 years ago, when I initially set up the 200,000, the council at the time made it a revolving capital improvement account. So it wasn't earmarked for any particular project. It was earmarked for any capital project. So as far as what we use it for, yeah, we could do that and then put it on, but again, we don't know where it's going to be needed. It's designed to be utilized in the most pressing area and utilized by both school side and town side. So at this point, the way it was developed and put in there, it's not tagged to a project. If you want to do that, then we'd have to change around the way we fundamentally do that whole capital improvement. And then we
Perhaps
would
it can be
earmark
a
it
discussion
for-
when we go to that department.
Okay. I have a question for Ms. Mills. I'm going to be very hopeful that our budget will pass first time in the referendum. We can't really talk about the school budget yet, so just looking at the municipal budget. If the budget does not pass and you don't get any increased revenue for the municipal side, what is the absolute number that you can determine that is mandatory increases that we must pay whether we get the money or not? Because I know that there are increases in pension and benefits and debt service, etc. So I'm curious to know just what are the mandatory increases that we're going to get no matter whether we come up with the money or not, so to speak.
An easier answer, Mrs. Dixon,
Yeah.
is what do we got to cut if it doesn't happen? And we've got to cut nearly $1 million is what has to be cut.
So it's $1 million of mandatory increases that we have to expect. Is that correct?
It's $1 million in cuts to go back to a no tax increase. We have additional revenue coming in, but we cannot collect more in taxes if it's rejected. And there's nearly $1 million of those additional taxes on the 3.95 is going to the town side. So yeah, a zero tax increase budget, we would have to cut $1 million out of that budget.
And we did that last year, didn't we?
Yes, we did. Lisa, your mic's muted.
I'm not sure, but it might be, it might be a little bit more if I just literally put a zero tax increase in my formulas. We got to reduce expenditures by 2.7 million, but but we can easily take out the capital, which is an increase. So it's 500,000. So you're right, Ed. You're looking at, 1.6 that we would have to eliminate. Just a little over.
Well, let's go with that because so that's what I'm saying. I'm going to ballpark of $1 million.
Right.
That's what
That's
we're
pretty
looking
close.
at. Yeah. That's what we'd be forced to cut. And $1 million would have to come out of this budget.
Okay.
And where that's coming from?
Oof.
I mean, yes, the bodies that are in there would go, the new bodies, and there are several, and that's why we'll break them out for a total amount. We're looking at reducing that DPW increase. We're looking at more than likely reducing Parks and Rec even more. One of our biggest problems, and I say this every year, the way municipal governments pay into unemployment, it takes the layoff of 3 people to save the equivalent of one person's salary, because we've got to pay 2/3 of their unemployment that we get billed by that. So we got to lay off 3 people to get their savings of 1. So it's an ugly situation that we've got to that we have to produce those savings. So I'd rather try and do programs first than bodies, but again, it can't be all done on programs. There will be bodies that would come out of this. If this budget does not pass, in whatever form it's put forward by this council to the public, the school side and the municipal side are going to suffer greatly. There will be a substantial reduction in programs. There'll be a substantial, I can envision. And every time we say it, people accuse us of throwing threats out there. I'm not throwing threats. I'm just trying to be honest tell everybody the truth on what we're facing. We are facing a reduction in yard waste pickup, where we're forced to close the transfer station. Bulk pickup would have to go. And again, with the associated jobs that go with it. Parks and Rec is going to be decimated. $1 million is a lot to cut from a budget that doesn't have a lot of fat in it. So we're facing a problem if this is rejected.
I just wanted to raise that issue. Thank you. Ms. Ludwig.
So tonight feels too early to do this, but I think at some point we also want to put these big numbers into more of, the layman's terms, right? What does this mean for a homeowner, $300,000 homeowner, or, when you say $1 million, Ed, $1 million to you might mean something totally different than $1 million to me or to our residents who are going to vote. So at some point, I'm assuming we'll take these numbers and do something similar to like what you did in January, where we said, hey, this is what this translates down into your, to the average taxpayer coming in, right?
Well, we will be doing that. One of the issues we face right now on doing that, I can give you the percentage. I can give you what the cuts are based on those percentages. The problem is I can't give you the tax rate because, again, new development that's been going on, and because of that shift and all of that, we haven't closed out the certified the roll. So until we do that, we don't know the actual cost. And we will be getting that in a little further down the road. But until we actually have that, I can't tell you how much it's going to mean, how much of an increase or cost. I mean, at 395, if we've had a good year in development, the actual tax rate increase on that can be less than 3% because of that new development. I don't know how much we've had at this point. We haven't even begun to run those numbers yet because we've still got a lot of things going on that side. So we will, and as it goes,
when does that
have them?
When does that just usually kind of come into the conversation? So when would you just generally expect that for you to have a better idea of what that will be?
We will have a much better idea by the end of April.
End of April.
End of April, we'll have a better idea on all of it. We should have a better idea on where our costs are and those items that we don't have solid numbers on yet. So all of that should start to come in. I doubt we're going to have solid numbers from the state at that point. We usually don't. And that's something that drags a little bit. But by that point, we'll have done some preliminary locks on the assessed values and start running some numbers and where we are on the tax rate on that. So we'll be getting that going as we move forward. So by the end of the month, you'll see all of those and probably more solid numbers and tax rates, potential tax rates at the time. And even that, it's going to shift a bit. It always does. We put out one number and it may shift up or down 3 cents to 5 cents in that ballpark. We don't have it until we actually lock it at the very end, right before we send all the data to the state. We could have some changes on there.
It seems prudent for the town council to have a meeting on the budget. I'm looking at Monday, the 19th. It's between our two meetings, and we can at least start talking to department heads about their budgets, their expenditures, even though we don't have a handle on revenues yet. Revenues, as Mr. Wazika said, will come toward the end of the month or early May, but it at least gets us started. So we can talk about scheduling a meeting then. Okay, any other questions? Mr. Wazika?
I would also say that a couple of weeks, if you schedule it for that mid between those two meetings, it'll give me and Lisa some time to bring Mr. Marchand up to speed on where the budget is, what's going on. That's, again, I don't know what he was involved with on doing the budgets from where he was, but it'll give us enough time to bring him up to speed on all of this.
Excellent.
So that would be good.
Okay. I think Mr. LeBlanc, you had a question.
Yeah, just final comments. I did want to say thanks to Ms. Mills for putting together this binder for all of us. I sincerely appreciate the efforts. I actually also appreciate the transparency. A couple additional line items have been added to the P&Ls, I'll call them. Two questions. I do see a new line item called healthcare waivers on a couple of the department P&Ls. And then I know we briefly touched upon it, but it's the pension 414H line. So quick question on the pension 414H. So we never had that expense in FY 19 and 20 and actuals through 21, because I just don't see any activity in those columns.
We did have it, but they were bundled into the regular pension line. They weren't
Okay.
broken down.
You
Same
you
deal-
segregated it.
Correct. Same
Okay.
deal with the waiver. That was always part, it would list in the medical line. It was always in there. And if
But you're being more transparent this year.
we're trying to make this thing,
I listen, I love the transparency. So I just wanted to call that out, and I just wanted to say thanks to Ms. Mills. The only question I have, and I know we got this last night, so I didn't get through too many of the departments, but what on Department 320, Board of Canvassers, poll workers, FY 20 was 0 for actuals. For current year, we had 40,000, but it jumps up to 71,000. I just didn't know exactly what's causing the 71,000 for poll
Yeah.
workers for next year.
elections.
Elections.
Yeah, it's this special election.
Oh, so the special election's gonna cost us $71,000?
That's what the Board of Canvassers said. And in 2019, it was 61,000. So
Well, we had a general election in fiscal year 21 too. We had everything.
Yeah.
It was the
I
20,
just- For a special election where nobody's running except for one person, I just, 71,000 seems.
oh, why would it
a
still
lot.
be? Okay, I got you.
We also have 3 referendum too.
We have
I
three,
can look into that for
We
you.
had the referendum,
we had 3.
but that was in
referendums.
this fiscal year.
That was in this fiscal year, and it
Oh,
only cost,
so will-
40.
Isn't there going to be a referendum with a potential new?
But that will be this fiscal year too.
in fiscal year.
I just feel like it's quite
It'll be
high,
May.
that's all.
I'll double check on that.
Okay.
Well, we
Yeah,
would
next year
appreciate it.
next year I don't know that there would be an election for fiscal year 22 between July.
Does it include the bond the possible school bond referendum?
Bond is in the fall, I believe.
remember,
Yep, that would be in there.
I can find out. I mean, she was in here with Billy, and they stated that's what they needed. I mean, I didn't.
you have a bond referendum coming up. You have the FTM all-day referendum. That's five different locations, poll workers for all of those. So you've got referendums and votes coming up this year, this upcoming fiscal year.
Plus a special election for the district.
Well, no, well, you've got the election, you've got to have an election for the bond. I mean, that's gonna be one. You're gonna have the FTM all-day ref. That's the second one. That's why those, I believe that's why you've got those in there.
Yeah, because the
And
special election
number.
would be this year, not FY 22 to member Shockley's point. But yeah, if we could just maybe get a breakout of that 71,000 just for the estimates, I would appreciate the insight.
Absolutely.
Oh, not a problem.
Can I also ask, while we're talking about the referendum, because we have an all-day referendum, I'm assuming we can't make early voting or have any wiggle room there, but I don't want to assume that.
No. No. You're talking about our all-day ref for the bond?
Yeah.
No,
Yeah,
it's not an election. It's a vote on the
Referendum.
budget. So it's not, you don't do early on that.
okay.
On top of, this thing changes right up until the last minute. You can't give them a mail-in that may know that you'd have to start the process like 2 months in advance. You don't even have final numbers.
We don't even know what the numbers are.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I would just like to say to Ms. Mills, you mentioned earlier with Parks and Rec, you didn't want to ask, please ask. Because if you're not sure, I will almost bet you that I'm not sure.
Yeah.
So it would only help me in having to help put this budget together to hear your questions.
Well,
Never-
wait for
never
someone to
feel
say something.
Never feel uncomfortable.
Okay.
My guess is that she's already asked a dozen questions that we haven't even thought about and
Right.
taken care of it so well that we haven't even had to ask the question.
I'm very thankful to hear that the council loves this new budget format. Lisa has put in, I can't even begin to tell you how many hours into this whole mess in the 8 short weeks that she's been here. I appreciate everything she's done for this town. She's worked her tail off. She's put her freaking lifeblood into this thing. I just can't believe the amount of time, and she deserves all the credit for everything she's done on this. I love the transparency. I love the data. I think this thing is far superior to anything we've ever put out in the past.
Thank you, Ed. Can I just say that the assembly of the binders and all, the finance department was running around trying to get those assembled to you by 3:30. There's a lot more work to do than it looks. And just so the town council knows that just this presentation and that the presentation for the salaries is by title. So this gives, so in the past, the general ledger just had like one line item for payroll for each department's budget. So if you're looking at the police budget and it said 4.5 million salaries, you really didn't know what that was made up of. And it's hard to manage a budget, much less look at it from a finance perspective to see what's going on. And that's when we broke it out by titles. And hence when Mr. James had stated about, we have the medical waivers. Now you can see the medical waivers, you can see cycle pay, you can see all longevity, all the different components that go into a salary, which I think is very, very important to understand. And hopefully you can see when you go all the way across and you see the net change, you can see it says percentage wise 5-2%, and you can, okay, that's reasonable, right? But in the past, when you have everything lumped together, it's near impossible to get a reasonable change in percentage and to say, oh, I'm comfortable with that. But
Yes,
the
yes.
finance department has worked, and I include, Lori, Elizabeth, and Debbie, we had to split out all the general ledger by title and go back and put in these prior numbers. And we did the best we could with the information because they never booked it in total in the prior years. I mean, never booked it by title. So we did our best to break it out for 19 and 20. But for FY 21, our current Keystone system, we had to do a lot of work to do this. It required a lot of accounting entries. We had to work with Keystone to get the correct links. And with that, we found some stuff that wasn't linked properly or twice. And so that's why, it took pretty much a big team effort. And then the department heads themselves did all the details for operations. And so this is kind of a lot of work on everyone's part.
Ms. Mills, when you were going through and adding the titles and then the salaries associated with those titles,
Yes.
did you add positions that are currently vacant that we are assuming are going to be placed during the year?
If I didn't add any vacant positions unless they were there in 19 and 20, because they wouldn't be showing on this analysis.
Okay,
And I did add some new positions. I added a new position for the assessor's office, and I tend to put new next to it.
okay,
And then the police department is looking for a major, we put new next to that.
okay, perfect.
Okay. But
Very
that's
helpful.
okay.
Like I said, I mean, Member Ludwig said, I just need a little bit more time to dig down.
Yeah.
That's all.
I did my best to break out the positions, and I know people's titles might have changed. So going back in 19 and 20 was kind of difficult. We didn't have that detail, so we did the best we could over here.
The major position is not a new position. That actually a position when I promoted the major to chief, I haven't filled it at that point, and I was waiting until we got a budget this year. That didn't happen. I left it vacant, knowing that extra funds that were in there may need to be shifted somewhere else. And it was a position that I spoke to the chief about. So it's not really a new position. It's one that does need to be filled. And hopefully, if this budget gets passed, we'll ensure that we've got the funds to fill that position. But that's why it will remain vacant.
Mrs. Shockley?
Just something I was wondering as I looked at the DPW portion of the budget. Can you just let us know how many people actually work for DPW? Only because under roads and bridges, it shows 11 drivers and what their salaries would be.
Yep.
And then if you look under refuse collection, it shows 11 drivers and collectors and what their salaries would be. I
Yep.
just want to see if there's overlap there.
No,
There is no overlap.
it's not overlap. Those are the.
It's all separate.
These are all separate. And if they're part-time positions, like, especially in the library and stuff, it says PT next to them. So.
Okay.
you
I
see-
just wasn't sure because they're all under DPW and the fact that those two numbers matched up to the number.
And if you go under, what do you call it? Snow removal,
That's just overtime.
right? You're not gonna see any employees in that one because there's no new employees.
Gotcha.
It's overtime,
Okay.
for those other positions. So that's why,
Okay.
that's how it's set up.
Okay. That makes sense. Why didn't we? Okay.
And it is better to see it that way, isn't it? Now you know how many people we have in
Yeah.
different areas.
No, it is helpful, but probably like everyone says, when we get to speak to the department heads, we can break this down by section. I think that will be really helpful.
I agree.
Great. Are there other questions from members of the council at this point in time? Okay, Mr. Wazika, we have 24 attendees. I'd like to open this up to public comment now.
We have 24 attendees. If anyone would like to speak, have a question, comment, please raise your hand and I will bring you into the meeting. For the public attending this meeting, if you have a question, concern, comment, please raise your hand and I will bring you into the meeting. So you may, excellent, we've got someone. Mr. Clements, allowed to talk. Sir, please state your full name, spell your last name, and give your address for the record, please.
Josh Clements, 10 Gentry Farm Drive. Thanks for the transparency, great budget, good review. Question I had regarding bonds, and I know this is just one question. I know this has been mentioned in the past, the possibility of refinancing the bonds. And here tonight, it was mentioned that some of the bonds have a variable rate. I don't know if there's any further information on possibly refinancing or reducing those costs.
That's something we're looking into. But again, we have been tied up nonstop on this, getting this out. So once there's a little bit of breathing room, that's something that we will be diving deeper into to see if there can be some potential savings on that. The problem is, depending on the savings on it, a lot of it in a lot of cases gets eaten up by the issuance cost that can be quite expensive at times. So we have to look at that as well. But we will be looking at that. It's just that time has been in short supply lately.
So the President Dixon, can I make a comment? I think we get this question pretty often, though. So I know that we don't. I know that we have a lot going on, but I don't know if we're ever going to have a time where we're like, oh, I have nothing to do. So do you know what I mean? So
no, that's not going to happen. We'll
Yeah.
never get that point. We're not looking for that. We just need to where we can do something besides the 10, 15 hours a day that's going into the budget. And
Yeah.
then once we back off from there, we can start spending some time on those other things. But everything has been
Well, I'm just wondering, and we don't have to solve this right now, but is there a way that we can, I always hear this term, work smarter rather than harder. So is there a finance intern in town that we can get in the summer and have them come and work with Steve or somebody on the bond side? Or, I just want to think about these things for the future because I know that several people here on the council have asked about this. We have, our public asking about this.
We don't want to lose our window either while the
yeah.
bond rates are so low.
I definitely don't want to do that. So I don't think we have to solve it tonight, but we should probably be thinking about another way to handle it.
Ms. Mills?
Mike.
Yes, I mean, we've already brought it up to the bond advisor. So, and he's also working on those schedules for the potential new bond for the school bond. So he's well aware of that and to look at it. And with that refinancing, you also have to, the difference in your ratings is the difference in what you're going to get for a rate. So he is well aware of that. And that is good. That would be on his plate. I mean, so it's nothing really an intern or someone in finance here could do. He would have to do the analysis for that. We would have to ask him to do that. And I think did we not mention to him, Ed, last time? And I think everyone was here.
You did.
And we asked about the potential, and so he's well aware of it. I guess we can ask him at the next meeting to see if he wants to do that, right?
I'll give him a call tomorrow and see if he
Okay.
has started that process.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Clements, anything else?
I guess this was a question related to Parks and Rec and the revenue in it. And, I know the 1.9 trillion got mentioned here, right? I believe most of that money is supposed to offset lost revenue. So it'd be interesting to see that lost revenue in Parks and Rec as that account is pulled out. So again, echoing the council here, appreciate the transparency.
Yep. Thank you. Is there anyone else in the public that would like to speak, have a comment, question, concern that they would like to bring up at this time? One more time, one final time. Is there anyone in the public that would? Mr. Clements has decided he's got another one. Go ahead, sir. You're back in.
Hey, wanted to give people a chance. No, this topic came up recently in one of the other town council meetings, and I don't know if this is broken out in the budget, but grant revenue as a source for the town. Are there grants that different departments are applying for, getting, and then do we have a success rate in applying for grants, and how does that compare to other communities? Could we be doing a better job as a community getting outside sources of funding?
As you've heard in the past from various town department heads, a lot of them are going out. They are requiring grants. Mr. McGee, Mr. Robillard, they get, and those grants are typically they're funded and they're maintained. They're not on our books for the most part. They're maintained and they're all tracked through the feds in the state, and all the reporting goes on through that, the financial reporting. And as someone who's done a bunch of state and federal grants in my prior position, all that tracking goes through there. We never run that through our budget because it's just never been part of those. Anything else, sir?
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate the time.
Other questions for the members of the council? Okay, Mr. Wazika, I have a question for you. When may the town council members receive the school budget? We've got a summary, which Ms. Mills has included, but we don't have detailed information. Are we going to get that for tomorrow?
I thought I mailed that out to you with the detailed budget. I thought I emailed that out. Let me check.
I saw an email, but I didn't see an attachment. Maybe I missed it.
It was actually a forward. I forwarded Craig's budget message. Let me try to think of how far back it was. I will, when this meeting ends, I will go look.
Okay, thank you.
Did anyone else get his budget? Jamie, you got it. I know I thought, I'm almost positive I sent it out.
I got it.
It was a forward from Craig's, Mr. Levis's email, and it was attached to his email.
Are these the PDFs?
Yes.
Okay, I did not have an opportunity to open up. How many hundreds of pages is it, Jamie?
I don't think it was hundreds of pages. I think it was just a couple. Hang on a second.
Sure.
Wasn't it just a summary?
I didn't
There
see,
should have been a full budget. Hang on.
I think one of the PDFs was 37 pages, or at least it says 37 on it at the end. And then a summary in the first attachment.
No? Nope, I've got it. I forwarded it on yesterday, 3:30 at 5:51 PM.
okay,
If I will do this, I will forward it again. It has his presentation in it as well as his budget. And the file says FY 2022 budget prelim, but it is the entire budget. It's 2 meg in size.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, one PDF had 10 slides, and then the other one, to member Ludwig, was 37 pages.
Okay, fine.
I have it.
Mr. Wazika, we have one comment from, we have a comment from Ms. Lima.
Right, 1 second. I've just sent that back out to everybody just in case.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Ms. Lima, if you would please state and spell your name as well as your address, please.
Hillary Lima, Lima, 31 Edward Street. Just wanted to confirm, Mr. Wazika, so what is it, the binder that the council members have that will be posted on the town website, or just the presentation you made today?
No, the binder that the council has, we will post that same basic copy of what they've got. So you will have all the expenditures, all the revenues, all the departments, everything that we've given them.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you very much. And thank you, Ms. Mills, for the construction of this year's budget and the transparency. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Any other comments?
We have none with their hands up, ma'am.
Okay. May I have a motion from a member of the council to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Mr. Blank. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Ludwig, any discussion? Okay, raise your hand if you approve of adjourning. Okay, 4 yeas, no nays. All right, the meeting is adjourned at 7:27 p.m. See you tomorrow evening, 6 o'clock.
My last
Thank you.
meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Wazika. Thank you.
Mr. Wazika,
Good night.
you never know how many more meetings we'll have before the 5th. Take care. Bye.
Good night.
Good night, all.
Everyone.